常要竟生一种骄傲心，认为我呀超过一切，我高过一切，我比谁都有智慧，生一种自满的心。你那一满了，什么智慧也进不去了，因为你满了嘛。你那个智慧呀的宝藏是在你那不满的时候才能装进去。你要满了，又该呀向外流了。你看那个碗里的水，你要装满了，它就向外流。古人说，空手把锄头，陆行其水牛。人从桥上过，桥流水不流。因为一般的人呢，就说哎，这个禅这里头这怎么讲呢？怎么叫空手把锄头呢？不会解释。我这个笨人呢，我给他用个笨法的这解释。你看看，这手里是空的，你才能把这锄头。你要这手里有东西，怎么会把锄头呢？空手把锄头，这有什么讲呢？这有什么禅机在里头呢？没有，就是人转不过那个相的空手把锄头是怎么回事？你看，听说有一个学者研究千手千眼观世音菩萨，拿出搜集很多材料来对证到一起，大家看看是不是千手，对证一下，考证一下。其实这个千手千眼观世音菩萨只是一个名称，它也不一定1000个手，或者它有1001个手，或者它有1010个手，或者有100100个手，这都不一定的。不过它总下来名词就叫千手千眼，或者他的手有99只，999只，或者998只，这不一定的，何必在这个上来用功夫呢？陆行其水牛，你看，陆行你是在道路上走，大路的路，陆行其水，那个水牛它不是单单在水里可以跑在路上也可以跑所以你在路上行路的时候也可以骑水牛嘛，没有什么奇怪的。人从桥上过，人在桥上过呢，好像看着是桥流水不流似的，这都是没有什么一定了不起的意思在里头。这个人就是在那钻窟窿、钻牛角尖。怎么叫空手把锄头？怎么叫陆行其水牛？怎么叫人从桥上过？怎么叫人桥流水不流？这你看，本来没有事，天下本无事，庸人自扰之 竟跑一些个浪费时间的路子，如来认为是可怜悯者呀。说法师啊，你昨天许的愿，要给他们讲一讲这个近来中国100年的经验和经过，这些个大事，100年以来的大事你不要讲这个空车法出头，路行溪水流，人从桥上过，桥流水不流。我没有愿意想要听这个，你讲这个干什么？对不起。
At no time do you want to become arrogant. If you feel that you have transcended everybody else and that you have greater wisdom than everybody else, then you are self-complacent. And once you become smug and full of yourself, no wisdom can enter. Why? Because you are already full to the brim, and wisdom cannot enter. The treasury of wisdom can only enter when you yourself are empty or hollow. Once you are full, then anything that comes in will just overflow. Now there is a verse that goes this way. With empty hands you carry a hoe. Walking on the road you can ride on a water buffalo. A person walks across a bridge. The bridge flows, but the water does not flow. Now when people hear this, they say, oh, this is a chant verse. It's really enigmatic. We can't figure it out. What does it mean? But I'm a very stupid person, so I'll explain this verse in a stupid way. The first line says, with empty hands we carry a hoe. Well, of course, if your hands weren't empty, you wouldn't be able to carry anything. So what mystery is there in this verse? Is very simple, very straightforward. It's just that people get caught in marks and appearances, and so they're perplexed. It's just like recently we hear that there's a scholar who was doing research on the 1,000-eyed Guanyin Bodhisattva, and he took different sections from various sutras and tried to collect all this material together and try to figure out exactly how many hands this Bodhisattva had. He tried to prove that he had 1,000 hands. But actually you should know that 1,000 hands or 1,000 eyes, that's just a name. It's not fixed. It's not to say that the Bodhisattva only has 1,000 hands and no more, no less. He could have 1,001 hands, or 1,010 hands, or 1,100 hands. Or maybe he only has 999 or 998 hands. So why do you want to expand your effort on such minor details? Now the second line says, one walks on the road and rides in a water buffalo. Well, that's not so strange. You could be walking on the road, but you could also ride in a water buffalo. A buffalo not only moves in water, it can also move on land. Now, when a person walks across a bridge, you may, because there's an illusion, optical illusion, that makes it appear as if the water is not flowing, but the bridge is flowing. So it's just a matter of perception, how you look at it. And there's nothing very mysterious about this verse. But people get caught up in different tangents, and then they get really carried away, so they think that the verse is very mysterious. This is a case of originally there's nothing under heaven, but stupid people make a lot of trouble for themselves. And so they waste a lot of time walking on wrong paths, and they're very pathetic. Now somebody is saying, Dharma Master, you told us last night that you were going to discuss the major events that have happened in China for the past century. So we're waiting to hear about that. Why are you talking to us about an empty hand and a hole? We don't want to hear anything about that. Well, sorry.步虚和尚，他呀是隋朝的人。隋朝的人呢，因为隋朝那时候乱呢，中国很乱呢，他就避秦呢，到了天台山去。避秦呢，就是寻着桃源好避秦。那么呢，隋朝乱的时候他也想找个桃源，找个桃源嘛，他就跑到天台山去出家修行。所以说，误入天台识虎溪，他那么误打误撞的，有心无心的，他跑到天台山去避难去。避难呢，在那个石虎山的西边，在那修行。修行呢，就是朝夜流霞。他一早去也没有什么粮食吃，也就是在那儿喝一点呢一早去的露水，露水来止渴，朝夜流霞，这个止渴，把自己的渴止一止。木参甘露，晚间呢，他就掺着一种甜的露水，甘露水，料充饥，治他肚饿。这就是在山里头这么活着就算了，也没有什么饭吃，也没有什么菜吃，油盐呢更不要提了。那么所以就这么对付活着。面壁9年呢，在那地方打坐面壁坐了9年，吹大道，成道了，开悟了，只谈时代换新意呀。这个弹指间呢，就这么一弹指的时间，时代已经有10个朝代了。这是从隋朝那时候来隐遁呢，到清朝末年的时候，这个时代
唤起，与我辟土。在这高定涵呢，这个老居士就请这位步虚和尚给说一说的中国未来这个是到什么程度上他与我辟土，要我给说一说将来的事情发展到什么程度这是在光绪30年那时候说的天机难泄，可知这天机不可泄露，难泄就是不可泄露，泄常机。我稍微用禅语来说一说这个道理为什么我方才说空说法图头陆行其水牛，人从桥上过，桥流水不流，这都是常机常机
There's a piece of literature which is a prophecy, and it was composed during the 30th year of the reign of the Emperor Guangxu. That's at the end of the Qing dynasty, in the beginning of the century. In Beijing, 30 years of Guangxu, 30 years, and it was written in Beijing. It came like an oracle. In Xishan Yiyuan, the monastery Azure Cloud, and the layman was called Gao Jinghan, and he requested a monk, the spirit of a monk called步虚和尚, to give this oracle. And before this old monk spoke his oracle, he prefaced it with an 8-line verse. And the 8-line verse says, "In the past, because I had to flee from chaos, I sought for Bodhi. I mistakenly entered Tiantai Mountain, the west side of Shigu Mountain. In the morning I drank the flowing mists to quench my thirst. In the evening I tasted sweet dew to drive away my hunger. I sat facing a wall for 9 years and accomplished the great path. In the snap of my fingers, 10 dynasties have passed, and now there is a new government. Because someone wishes me to reveal certain secrets, someone wishes that I reveal certain secrets, but basically heavenly secrets cannot be divulged. So I will speak in Chan terms, couched in Chan terms." Now this was a monk who lived during the Sui dynasty, that's the 6th century AD in China. At that time, China was going through a lot of turmoil. And in order to avert this kind of turmoil, he went up to Tiantai Mountain in search of a paradise, a haven, and left the home life there. And so the beginning of this verse talks about how he entered Tiantai Mountain on the west side of a hill called Shigu, and he started to cultivate. And the life was very ascetic. There was nothing to eat or drink. In the morning, he drank the dew, the flowing mist, to quench his thirst. And in the evening, he only drank sweet dew. And there was no vegetables or rice to speak of, much less oil and salt. And for 9 years he sat facing the wall until he accomplished the great way. But now, the time has gone so fast that it was like as though he had just snapped his finger, and 10 dynastic rules have already transpired. From the Sui dynasty all the way to the end of the Qing dynasty, that's the beginning of the century, it's already several hundred years and 10 dynasties. Now, the layman Gao Jinghan asked this monk to speak an oracle about the development of China. And so he said, "It's very difficult to reveal heavenly secrets, but I will speak a verse couched in Chan terms." And that's why just now I brought up the poem about the empty hand carrying the hoe, that's also a chant verse.
所以啊，他说这8句，然后就说了，说现在是说第一条是说的玄统皇帝，说是啊，云暗暗雾稠稠，龙归泥土朔猕猴啊，3岁开通3载府，月下无如水空流，万顷烟波一旦收。这云暗暗，这大家这没有什么解释。雾稠稠，也是那个天抽地残的样子。怎么天抽地残呢？龙归泥土了，龙啊跑到土里去了，啊，又用这个土呢做出一个猕猴，啊，一个猕猴，就在那要耍猴子，所以啊，玄统做皇帝的时候啊，他3岁呀，也不知道这个皇帝是怎么一个滋味啊，他就哭起来。一登基坐殿的时候他就咧开大嘴就哭了。那时候摄政王抱着他，这摄政王抱着他坐殿呢，就说了好了，你不要哭了，一会儿就完了。你看，这一句话广东话讲的说一头，这一头最不好了，说一会儿就完了，一会儿就完了。你看，你不要哭了，一会儿就完了。这玄统3岁的时候，龙归泥土朔猕猴，做出一个猴子来，那耍猴子呢，拿玄统当猴子来耍，玄统不愿意干了，就哭起来。那么他哄他说，不要哭，一会儿就完了。在清朝一会儿就完了。3岁开通3载府，这个小猴子做了3年皇帝，可是怎么样降的这3载府他自己也莫名其妙。你看，在那只知道哭，他怎么知道这皇帝是什么滋味呢？3载府，月下无如水空流，月下这个月上面有个主字是个清字再加上3点水，就是清朝的清，所以月下无主，月上当然就有主啦月下无主，当然这个主跑到月上面去，月上面加上主字水空流，水没有了，这清朝完了。清朝完了，所以早就预定在那儿，早就注定了这不是笑话，我现在是给你们泄露天机，因为过去了，我是马后课，这马前课我对你们一讲那你们就会那我是未卜先知的现在是马后课了，我是小来的。跟谁学来的？跟你们各位学来的因为你们各位也不懂得马前课嘛。
So now I'll go on to explain, this is set after set, verse after verse of the major events that happened in China. And the first verse alludes to the Emperor Shentong, who was the last emperor of the Qing dynasty. And the verse goes like this: the clouds are dark, and the fog is somber and sad. The dragon returns to the earth, and the earth is used to sculpt a monkey. A 3-year-old child enjoys 3 years of blessings. Beneath the moon there is no master, and the water has run dry. Thousands of acres of mist and waves in one day is finished. Now what does this mean? The beginning says the clouds are really somber and the fog is sad. It paints a picture of a very sad, sorrowful time. This is towards the end of the Qing dynasty. And so the dragon returns to the earth. The dragon, of course, represents the emperor. However, the emperor is now submerged, and instead they sculpt a monkey. They sculpt a toy monkey to play with. Now who is this monkey? It's the Emperor Shenpong. Because when he ascended the throne, he was only a 3-year-old boy. And of course he didn't know what was going on. And so when they put him on the throne, he started to wail. Now, Shenzhen Wang, his uncle, was holding him and trying to comfort this little boy, and he said, don't cry, it's going to be over in a very short while. So those were prophetic words, because sure enough, it was over in a very short while. The little boy sat on the throne for 3 years, and then the Qing dynasty came to an end. And of course he really never understood what it meant to be a king. Now the next line says, underneath the moon there is no master, and the water has run dry. This is an allusion to the character Qing, because in the Chinese it's got water radical on one side, and then the character for master underneath, which is a moon. But now it says, underneath the moon there's no master, and the water has run dry, meaning that the Qing dynasty is finished. So you see, it was all written in the stars already. People knew about this long ago. This is no joke. And I'm revealing the secrets to you now because these things have transpired, so there's no problem. I really don't have the power of prophecy. I can't foretell anything, but I can tell you about it now that the things have transpired. And where did I learn this talent? I learned it from you.
万顷烟波一旦收，这个一旦，这一旦是玄孔那个玄字没有宝字盖啊，一旦收就是没有了。万顷烟波，这万里江山呢，由这个玄孔这儿就结束了。一旦收就结束了啊，就是没有了啊。各位，我解释这个，您各位要有什么不同意我的解法，可以提出来反问啊。要是没有理由提出来呢，那就是 pass， 就通过了。因为这个我在这个这里林呢，这个大学里头，我给他们也是很多的那些个大学生给他们讲的。讲完了，他们是有项目赞一词，也不知道对，也不知道不对。这第一个是宣统皇帝啊，第二个是讲谁呢？第二个就讲孙果父了。孙果父这个偈颂是这么说的，说君作主指彬彬，万里长虹破浪征，黄好楼中吹玉笛，八堂齐奏凯歌吟，旌旗五彩换新新。这个说君作主，说你是祖宗，你是祖宗，我当然就是孙子了。这里头有个孙字，指彬彬，这是不算一句话。要是完整的文质彬彬，应该是文质彬彬。上边呢，那个君作主底下包含一个孙字，下边指彬彬就露出一个文字，就是孙文两个字。 各位有没有什么另外的意见？万里长虹破浪针，孙国父当初起义创革命在檀香山坐船，那时候还没有飞机呢。你不要误会说，孙国父怎么不坐飞机来？没有嘛。那个我觉得都是很新鲜的。那么万里长虹破浪针，他这个坐着船在这海里头这个乘风破浪这个就像一道长龙似的在虚空里头。可是这个长虹在海里被那个火轮船把那个海给扫水路了。万里长虹破浪针，把这个乘风破浪为了要创革命，这个针字不是这个征战的征，就是创革命黄鹤楼中水雨底在这个黄鹤楼武昌起义吹起来号角吹起来起义的号角这一吹，八方齐奏凯歌吟，四面八方都响应这个李元洪在武昌起义他们登高一呼，这个各处都响应，八方齐奏凯歌吟，都胜利了旌旗五彩换新旗。咱们中华民国最初革命的是五彩旗汉满蒙会战。我讲错了，你们大家可以打我几个嘴巴。那么现在先讲这两个。
So the final line says, myriads of acres of mist and waves in one day are finished. This means the large expanse of territory in China in one single day is completely done. That means the dynasty collapsed all at once. And the word for dan, for day, is also a reflection on the character Xuan for Xuantong, because without the hat radical on top, you get the word Dan. So even his name is very clearly hidden in this verse. I explained this to a large group of university students in the University of Oregon. And I asked them whether I passed or not. None of them could say anything. Whether I spoke it correctly or not, they didn't know. But I'll ask you, if you think that there's a problem with my explanation, you can contest it. But if you don't, then we'll say that we've passed. Now the second verse is an allusion to the National Father, Dr. Sun Yat-sen. And the verse goes like this: you are the grandfather, and you are very polite. A long rainbow arches over 10,000 miles of waves as break through the waves. In the yellow crane pavilion, he blew the jade flute, and the 8 directions chorused in a song of victory. So a 5-colored flag was hoisted and the colors were new. Now this is talking about the National Father, because his last name is Sun, which means grandson. So the line says, you are the grandfather. Meaning, well, if you're the grandfather, of course I am the grandson. So the first name, his surname, is revealed in this line. The second line says, Zhi Bing, very polite. And this is a quote from the classics, And the character that's missing is Wen, because Sun Wen is his name. So from these two lines you know that it's talking about Dr. Sun. And he started the revolution in China. And so he started from Honolulu. He was studying in Hawaii. He came back to China, and at that time there was no airplane. So he rode on a boat. And this boat made its way through the waves, breaking through. It was like a long rainbow, a magnificent rainbow riding through the waves, coming towards China. And then at Yellow Crane Pavilion, this is a place in Bhutan where he started. He made a clarion call for the revolution, and immediately people responded everywhere throughout the country. So it said, the 8 directions chorus, and they sang a song of victory because the revolution was successful. And then a 5-colored flag was hoisted, and the colors were new. After the revolution, they designed a new flag for China, and at that time the flag had 5 colors representing the 5 main ethnic groups, which were the Han people, the Manchu people, the Mongolian people, the people, the Muslim people, and the Tibetan people. So this is the way I'm explaining these lines, but if you think that I have explained them incorrectly, I can hit my own mouth.
第3个是讲的咱们元皇帝，元皇帝就是洪宪，也就是袁世凯那个大蛤蟆精，怎么说袁世凯是个大蛤蟆精呢？因为袁世凯他自己以为他自己是真龙天子，实际上呢，说袁世凯有一个玉杯，这个玉杯啊是他最心爱的一个茶杯。那么他这个工人呢，有一天就给他送茶来了，他就在房里睡觉，这个工人呢，把门一开，送茶进来，一看他这个炕上，北炕是炕不是床，这个炕也就是床的别名啊。炕因为底下会烧火，它是男的。那么看见炕上这个大蛤蟆精有几尺那么长，这个工人一看这个就吓坏了，这真是一个妖怪，啪一下子就把这个玉的茶杯给打烂了，那么袁世凯还没死，还是个大蛤蟆。那么这个工人呢，出来就对这个一个管家说哎呀，这我去给主人送茶，主人我们也看见主人那个炕上一个大蛤蟆在那趴着，把我吓得把我茶杯主人茶杯给打烂了，这将来我没有命了。主人的最心爱的那个茶杯给打烂了，这怎么办？这管家就是他家里他的经理说这有办法，你这么样说，你说你一开门看着不要说看见一个蛤蟆，你说看见一条金龙。这个金龙张牙舞爪就冲着你扑来，你害怕把茶杯打烂了。你这么一说绝对没有事，不但没有事，保你有关注。这么样子呢，这工人就如法炮制了，就来如此这般如此对袁世凯去一说，袁世凯他 就决定要做皇帝啊，就因为他听这工人骗子说他是真龙了啊，本来是蛤蟆精。那么那袁世凯呀，这条怎么说的呢？说吉事怀柔，那个圆字上面有吉字啊，怀柔，这个怀字下面有这个好像衣服的衣，没有这个一点一横呢，这下面有这个这半段，所以呀，他说吉事怀柔，其实就是个圆字，就是个袁世凯的圆字，吉字加下面那个衣服的还没有做好那个衣服啊，就他穿上也不像个衣服，所以像个圆字啊。如果加一个一字就不是怀柔了啊，那个怀字底下呢那一半啊，怀字上边呢那一半那一段不要下边呢那一小段啊，吉事怀柔，这是个圆字。30年变30，这个这么一横，然后三数，正三数这30了，30变了底下又加一横，这是个世界的世啊，对吗？世界的世。其凡人哉，其凡人哉，其字加一个凡字是个楷字。其凡人哉，说这个不是个凡人啊，不是个凡人，是个什么？是个蛤蟆精啊，是吧？所以说，其凡人哉，昙花一现，他做皇帝做了83天。昙花一现，南北东西龙争虎战，南北东西呀，南京有个分过章，说是一条狗啊，是一条龙啊，是一条虎啊，有什么段祺瑞，那时候不是龙争虎战。七八数定，七八是15我没学过算数，但是大家不会错山川初定，北伐成功，统一中华民国，这是山川初定，这是说的袁世凯。
The third verse refers to Yuan Shikai. Yuan Shikai was the great general commander, and he was also the emperor of China for a very short time. Now actually he was a big toad essence, a big frog. But he thought he was the true dragon, the emperor. Now how did this come about? Yuan Shikai, when he was the prime minister, had a jade cup which he loved dearly. And every day his servant would bring tea in the cup to his room. Now one afternoon, the servant brought in the tea in that cup. But Yuan Shikai was asleep on his bed. He was taking a nap. And the servant saw on the bed a huge frog. It was several feet wide. That was the original shape of Yuan Shikai. And he was so scared that he let go of the cup, and the cup broke when it fell to the ground, broke to pieces. Now Yuan Shikai did not get up, but the servant raced outside. He was petrified. And he spoke to the butler. He said, "This is the end of me, because I broke our master's jade cup, and when he finds out, I'm done in." But the butler said, "Oh, I know a way to save you from this predicament. When he wakes up, just tell him that when you walked into his room, you saw on the bed a golden dragon. And he's going to be so pleased that not only will you not have any trouble, you'll be given a raise, you'll become an official." And so the servant was delighted, and that's what he did. So when Yuan Shikai woke up, the servant said, "Oh, I went into your room just now, and I saw a golden dragon on the bed, and I was so scared I broke the jade cup." So Yuan Shikai was pleased. And from that day on, he was resolved to become the emperor of China because he thought he himself was a dragon. He didn't know that his servant had cheated him. So anyway, the first is 及时怀柔, and this is the configuration it's referring to is the first character Yuan. That's his last name. The second line says there is change in 30 years. Now 30 in Chinese is written one way, and when there is a change, when the slash is added, it becomes the word shi, which is the second character for Yuan Shikai's name. And the third line says, how could he be an ordinary person? Now this qi fan ren zai, these two characters make up the third word in his name. So just those 3 lines alone, you can see his name come out. It says, it's like the Udambara flower manifesting, a sudden manifestation. This is a kind of flower that blooms once in a blue moon, but very quickly it will fade. And so it was referring to his reign. He reigned as an emperor, but only for 83 days. Then his regime got smashed. Then the next line says, the south, the north, the east, and the west, dragons fight and tigers battle. Now this was when different warlords and great generals rose up in different parts of China. There was Fan Guozhang and Duan Qirei and other people, and they were vying for the kingdom like dragons and tigers in battle. And so the 7 and the 8 were settled. 7 and 8 means 15. So 15 years later on, the country was first established, began to be established. This is when the northern part of the territory finally got settled, and all of China came under one rule. And that was 15 years after this battle has been going on. So this verse refers to Yuan Shikai.
咱们的第4个就是讲谁呢？就是讲的蒋中蒋介石。蒋介石这一段呢是这么说的。咱们的第4个就是讲谁呢？就是讲的蒋中蒋介石。蒋介石这一段呢是这么说的，说是干戈起，逐鹿忙这时候军阀各霸一方干戈起来了，逐鹿忙，都想做中国的主人翁逐鹿中原。干戈起，逐鹿忙，草莽英雄蒋出山。草莽英雄，这个草字头蒋出山是将要出山。其实这个这个草字头合起这个蒋字就是个蒋，蒋中总是蒋中正就这个蒋字可是你不说破了，一般人说草莽英雄，这有另外一个占山为王的这个瓦岗寨，大家又要出现了或者是梁山派又都来了草莽英雄蒋出山，其实就是蒋介石这个蒋字。这一句就说这个蒋字，不过他那么说一般人就不懂了，也不知道多少枕阁豪杰士，说有多少那时候英雄豪杰风云聚会到江南 啊，这时候到江南了，啊，蒋委员长到江南了，江南就是南京啊，啊，金陵日月有荣光，啊，这个南京这个日月有光明了，啊，这是讲的江东，这都有来历的，都是榜上有名的，早就都注定了，啊，早就都安排好了，啊，也是好像我们这个选举总统嘛，早都内定了，啊，早内定了，啊，这个选举不过就是走个形式而已。这是第4条。
Now the 4th verse refers to Chiang Kai-shek, the ruler later on of Taiwan. And the verse goes like this. Spears arose and people vied for the kingdom. This was talking about the period of the warlords fighting one another, trying to carve the empire into different pieces, but trying to monopolize the entire empire. Then from the bushes came a hero. He was going to come out of the mountain. Now the bushes has a grass radical, and below it is the word Jiang. So this is referring to Chiang Kai-shek, and that was his name. Now that I've spoken of this very clearly, you know that's what it's about. But for ordinary people who didn't understand, if they looked at the verse, they wouldn't be able to figure out the name. But anyway, the verse says, how many heroes came forth at that time? They gathered like winds and clouds at Jiangnan. So this is talking about the time when there were great generals and warriors that rose up in China, and they all met in Jiangnan region, that is Nanking. And in Jinling, which is Nanjing, the sun and moon emitted light again. So this was the time when there was a brief revival, when the country came under one rule for a very short time. And so you can see this prophecy was made a long time ago, but already all the names of these heroes were on the list. You could say that everything was predetermined. It was all written out in the stars. It was all mapped out. And maybe it's like the elections nowadays. Although they say there is free voting, actually you knew who was going to win, so it was all fixed. And it's the same way with these heroes that we're talking about.
第5条是说的谁呢？说日本鬼子，长长的腿子，说是鹰洲虎，渡海狼，茫满天红日更昏黄。茫茫神州上贺岁，苍生到处哭爷娘，春雷炸响见晴阳。就是说呢，鹰洲虎就是日本那叫扶桑啊，又叫鹰洲啊，它在那个鹰洲那地方就像个老虎似的，渡海狼。那么到渡过海到中国了，也就像豺狼似的，就这么厉害，茫满天红日。本来日本呢是应该红太阳可是昏黄的，那么有一些个雾气昭昭的，不太清楚。在这个时候茫茫神州上贺岁，那么中国的这个茫茫的神州就504散、7离子 上背井离乡啊，他们抗战8年的时候啊，妻离子散，父子不相见，兄弟妻子离散这个时间不知多少，所以说苍生到处哭爷娘，那个一些个儿子啊，就叫爸爸妈妈，各处喊爸爸喊妈妈叫天天也不应，叫地地也不灵了苍生到处哭爷娘。春雷大响见景阳，春雷大响是什么呢？一个原子弹落到黄岛那儿把这个太阳给打掉，一颗原子弹在这个太阳给打落下来
Now the next verse, which is the 5th one, talks about the Japanese invasion. So the verse says, the tiger of Yingzhou and a wolf who crossed the waters. Now Japan is called Yingzhou, and the Japanese, when they came across to China through the waters, was like a fierce tiger, and they were also like a wolf who crossed the water when it invaded China. The next line says, a red sun filled the sky, but it scorched the sky until it became yellow. This is because Japan is called the land of the rising sun, but when it came to China and really did a lot of damage to people, it was like the sun that had become yellow, meaning that it was going to set soon. So the vast expanse of China, everything was broken apart. When the Japanese invaded China for 8 years, the Chinese people suffered really drastically, and families were torn apart. A husband and wife couldn't be together. Children were separated from their parents, and there was just a lot of misery. So the country was torn apart. And the verse says the people everywhere were crying for their father and mother. They were all crying and weeping. And even when they called out to heaven and earth would respond. The last line says, a thunderclap in springtime. Suddenly one can see the sun again. Now what does this mean? The thunderclap in springtime. This refers to an atom bomb that was released in Hiroshima, because that put an end to that event, and the Japanese were put in their place after that.
师讲笑话就是这么来的，因为他太残忍，所以原子弹呢，这个全世界他是头一个吃原子弹的，因为他太厉害了。这也叫入世因入世果啊。我们佛教讲因果，这一点我们大家要特别注意啊，就是因果报应嘛。
Japan was small, but it was a very strong power, and it was called the tiger. But when it crossed the water and came to China, it became like a wolf. Now tigers are awesome, but still they won't actually hurt people. However, wolves creep up on you and then they can steal your pigs and other domestic animals away and you wouldn't even know it. So that was how the Japanese were when they invaded China. And so it was said that the red sun became yellow. It lost its light. What does it mean? They resorted to really inhumane means. They were very cruel in killing a lot of people. And that was why an atom bomb was released on them. They were the first country in the whole world to suffer an atom bomb explosion. And this is a matter of cause and effect. Because they were so cruel, they had to undergo this kind of punishment, and this is no joke. So everything is speaking the Dharma to you. Such being the cause, such is the result.
那么以后这一条就讲的谁呢？就讲西安事变。西安事变也是载到经传上的都是早安排好的了并不是这个偶然的。所以这个一段这么说的，说细柳英中群雄好饮，月言中秋甜醉未醒，双世薄秋一堕其井，红粉佳人面呀应景。你看这里头有红粉佳人，这就起了作用了。这细柳营中是长安那个地方，细柳营，长安结果不安，结果不安。群雄好饮，在那个地方，大家都喝醉了，喝酒喝醉了这个高谈阔论，喝醉酒了。月眼中秋那时候是大有阴天，没有月光。中秋节本来是月圆之期可是没有月光，月眼中秋，甜醉未醒他喝醉酒也没有都什么都不知道了。双世薄裘，两个狮子在那儿抢这个绣球就抢这个锦绣的江山。两个人呢抢一堕其井那么蒋总统就被人给抓起来这叫堕到井里来。堕到井里来，你看红粉佳人又来一个宋美龄女士宋子文到那儿对张小良一讲温情，张小良呢也就这一个傻小子就好了。蒋总统放开他，送他回去，这回他又掉井里又掉井里，掉了这个井是从古以来没有的这么长远的一个井60多年50-60年的一个井掉了。 是一张记者空换家人面颊饮酒。下边就讲的日本投降了啊，春雷大，数白旗，万千万火鬼哭啼啼，石头城中飞佛道，又见重整看公仪，东山又有火光照啊。这说的春雷大，说这个原子弹一响了，竖白旗，日本人无条件投降，竖起白旗来了啊！千万火鬼哭啼，这时候这一些个狼呢，都变成火鬼了啊！他们来哭哭啼啼的。石头城是南京，南京飞福道下命令了，这个光复了，光复大陆了，光复大陆啊！中国人又在南京呢，长衫马褂，礼仪300，礼仪3000，礼仪周周的啊，在那儿庆祝日本投降啊，无条件投降，中国光复。可是在这个时候啊，东山又有火光照，东山呢又起了火光了，又着火了啊，出来共产党了。东山有毛泽东，山东三省也是东，又有火光照，火光照就是红彩的光露出来了，林彪在东北，就是招兵买马，聚草乘凉啊，共产党成功了。
The 6th verse talks about the changes that happened at the place called Xi'an. It's all early on, all mapped out. And so the verse says, in the camp of Xiliu, the many heroes drank wine and abandoned it. The moon was covered up during the Mid-Autumn Festival, and they were all drunken and didn't even wake up. So this is painting the picture of a place in Chang'an, in the camp, in the barracks. There were these great generals who were leaders of the time, and they were all drinking. And it was the Mid-Autumn Festival, but the moon was hidden because there were clouds. And they all got drunk. The next line says, 2 tigers fought over a ball, and one fell into a well. Now these 2 tigers were Chiang Kai-shek and Zhang Xueliang, the 2 greatest lions. Yeah. The 2 lions. And they were the greatest 2 contenders for the empire of China. So the ball that is referred to is the beautiful country of China itself. And one lion fell into the well. Who was it? Chiang Kai-shek, because he was drunk and he was kidnapped. Then the last line says, a beautiful woman with all smiles on her face came to the rescue. And this was the wife, Song Meiling. With their brother Song Ziwen, they came to General Jiang's rescue because Song Meiling used her charm and finally convinced Zhang Xueliang to release her husband. And Zhang Xueliang brought General Jiang back to his camp, and then he fell into the well because he was kidnapped in turn, and they took him to Taiwan where he was in imprisonment for over 60 years. So you could say that this was a very deep well. The 7th verse refers to the surrender of the Japanese. And the verse goes like this. There was a huge thunderclap in spring, and a white flag was hoisted. Thousands of living ghosts wept and cried. In the city of rocks, a command came. And again, there was revival of the ancient court comportment. But in the eastern mountain, we see the fireworks beginning. So this is talking about the atom bomb. After the atom bomb in Hiroshima, the white flag was hoisted. The Japanese surrendered without any conditions. And millions of living ghosts cried and wept. This is the Japanese crying. In the city of rocks, this is Nanjing, a command came and it said all of China was revived. This is China waking up after the Japanese invasion. And in Nanjing, which was the capital of that time, they reverted to the ancient custom, the courtly custom. People were wearing long robes and they really were decked out and they were very, very dignified in their comportment, trying to bring China back to its feet again. However, right at this time, on the eastern side of the mountain, a blaze could be seen. Now, the word Dong is also an allusion to Mao Zedong, because the communist movement had just started, and as you know, it's red in color, and so we say the flames start to get going. So you could already see the red movement gathering momentum at that time, and Lin Biao was in Manchuria gathering his troops. So this was the kind of political scenario at that time.
下面就说的毛泽东，你们不知道愿不愿意听毛泽东？这个毛泽东是这么说的，说是日月食五星稀，日月无光了，日月被日食月食中国天狗吃太阳那么地口不知道吃什么，人口是吃人肉，你有人肉也给太太也吃，那么日月食五星稀，五星期它很少的，那时候五星期很稀少，二七交加化彩衣，你们各位这个二七交加，二字加七字合起来就是个毛字，不行解释一下，这是毛字，二七交加就合到一起了，挂彩衣，挂彩衣就是有刃闪的，有闪材的，闪材这个彩衣也有闪材的这是里头包含了一个毛泽东下面一句就说了，野人使足海金虎，野人是什么呢？就是工农兵工农兵海金虎，金虎就是大地主是金老虎，野人举足，你看一个野人呢，抬起腿他就敢把这个老虎给踢金老虎野人举足海金虎，遍地红花遍地鸡，遍地都是红花了，就是共产党遍地鸡，可是遍地都挨饿了那个鸡是挨饿的鸡，不是鸡鸭的鸡不要以为遍地都是小鸡子，我可以吃鸡肉，不用钱买了，都挨饿了，没有粮食吃了。富贵贫贱不高低，富贵贫贱都一样了，不高低了，这不是共产党吗？这是共产党
The 8th verse refers to Mao Zedong himself. And the verse says, the sun and moon were eclipsed, and the 5 stars became very dim. 2 sevens worked together, and there were colorful banners hung. Now the sun and moon are eclipsed, which means China was again thrown into turmoil and there was darkness. The 5 stars, meaning the 5 ethnic tribes, this became very dim because everything was covered over in this period of civil war and internal turmoil. 2 sevens add together. Now if you put the word 2 and 7 together, it makes up the word for Mao. This is Mao Zedong. So anyway, colorful banners were hung, meaning that Mao Zedong came out, and the country people oppressed the golden tiger. Now what does country people mean here? It means the workers' army. This is the communist army. And they finally persecuted the golden tiger, which is the landlord, because the farmers oppressed the landlords. And so throughout the land there were red flowers, and throughout the land there was hunger. The communist regime being red, it was like red flowers blooming throughout the kingdom, but there was all-pervasive starvation, because during that rule there was famine throughout the land and the people really suffered. So the verse said, there was no rich or poor, high or lowly. There was absolutely no high or low, because it was supposed to be a classless society. So when you say this was a clear allusion to the Communist Party.
纵横，一牛双尾，五福人行，日行恒轨，海上金鳌悬浮，野鸟凌空，东南尽毁。这二级纵横呢，就是毛泽东在天安门呢说啊，中国人民站起来啊，这是踌躇满志啊，义德气扬的。一牛双尾，又有一个人呢，是谁呢？一牛双尾，一个牛两个尾巴，你们见过这样的怪物吗？啊，这个一个牛两个尾巴，这是一个猪字，朱德朱字啊，牛字加上两撇，也是个猪字啊，这是一牛双尾，并不是真生出两个尾巴，就是说这个猪字残疾嘛，残疾就是说的像你似懂非懂啊。那么无福人行啊，这两位，一个是相王转世啊，是相中之王毛泽东不是骂人的，这是真的。我们袁世凯也是中国人的领袖啊，蛤蟆精都可以领导中国，做皇帝。那么这是一个大笨象，你看看那个毛主席啊，那电影这一出来，走路像象形一样啊，所以 这个朱德呢，朱德是狮子转世，所以这两位是可以做王的。一牛双尾，无负人情，两个人呢本来都不是。日行恒规，可是也是照着人呢做，在这个世上活着，这个太阳还没有这个停止转的，还是照常行，地球也没有停止转。海上金鳌是台湾。台湾这个地形像鳌鱼似的，悬浮绿，在那边呢，台湾是永庆成平，在那儿很好。可是铁鸟凌空，如果铁鸟就是飞机飞的时候东南天回要是满天遮天盖地的飞机起来，这就是一场豪杰。
Continues to paint the scenario of the historical epoch, and it says the 2 sevens were running wild, and one ox had 2 tails, and they were no longer like people. Now what does this mean? The 2 sevens is Mao Zedong, and as he stood up at Tiananmen watching his troops, he was very proud and very smug. And when he said, people of China stand up, he really thought that he had the world in his hand. Now the cow with 2 tails, this is basically, if you have the cow character in China and 2 slashes, it becomes the word for Zhu. And so this is Zhu the other leader of China. And they were no longer people. This is because they were animals that have come to the world to rule. Mao Zedong is actually the reincarnation of an elephant king. If you have watched him in the movies, you can see how he moves, really staid, and how he stomps around like an elephant. And Zhu is actually a lion. Well, you say, how could these worldliness be animals? Well, that's not so strange. General Yuan Shikai, who became emperor, was a big frog. So an elephant or a lion could rule. And the verse continues, but the sun and moon continues to revolve. This means things kept on happening. And then there is a golden tortoise in the sea. Now the golden tortoise refers to tortoise. That refers to Taiwan, because if you look at Taiwan, the shape of the island is in the shape of a tortoise. So that was the establishment of the nationalist government in Taiwan. And they were wearing black courtly robes. And this is saying that in Taiwan for a while there was a lot of prosperity and affluence, and the people seemed to be enjoying a lot of material wealth. But when the iron birds crisscross in the sky, the southeastern part of the world would be completely reduced to ashes. So this is talking about a time when airplanes are flying back and forth in a frenzy in the sky, then that part of the world will have to suffer a great disaster.
下一章就说了红霞玉，白云真，落花流水了无情。四海水中皆知山，白骨入秋满冈陵。湘江日月见东升。这个我不解释，因为这还没到。我也不是未卜先知 个这么说的啊，我觉得观盖定功罪分，茫茫海域见成平，百年大事浑如梦。看你这个梦醒不醒？南朝金粉太平春，有这几句啊，中国还有希望。万里山河处处青，将来中国呀，也不是白山，也不是红山，也不是黄山，是青山。处处青，这是这个。看后边最后是这么说的，说是以三分，就是美国苏联中国是以三分，有圣人出啊，这个圣人呢是哪块出的？中国。悬闪其冠，戴着黑帽子，龙章其服，身上啊绣着团龙，可不是做皇帝啊！你们各位不要再做发皇帝梦，月下无主了，没有皇帝做日月出明，处置万物。这个时候啊。这个圣人出现了他治理国家，四海讴歌，引受其土。这后边这几段我都时间也到了，也不讲，懂就懂，不懂那我也没法。
The 10th verse says, the red fogs disappear and the white cloud also get evaporated, and in the end, none of these two will last. There's blood flowing everywhere and white bones stacked up as high as mountains. But later on, the sun and moon become clear again. I'm not going to explain this verse because this is referring to something that will happen in the future. And since I can't foretell the future, I will explain this line. Now the 11th verse says, the final judgment happens after the coffin is closed. And so a person's merit or offenses are now clearly seen. Throughout the kingdom there is peace and prosperity. But the events of 100 years appear like a dream. Well, when will we wake up from this dream? The verse continues.
这一句很了解呢，各位在梦醒了没有？
Have any one of you waken up from your dream? Then there is a period that is spring-like and very peaceful and prosperous. And throughout the country, the mountains and rivers are green and blue. Now, from this line alone, we know that there is hope for China, because in the future there will come a time after this huge disaster that's predicted. There will come a time of peace and affluence, and at that time, the color of China will not be red. It won't be black. It won't be yellow. It won't be white. It will be green and blue. So those will be the representational colors. Now the final verse says, the world is divided into 3 equal parts. Now these 3 major powers is America, Russia, and China. A sage will come forth. Now this sage will come from China. His hat will be black, and his garments will be emblazoned with a dragon design. So he'll be wearing a black cap, and his clothes will have the dragon motif, but he won't be a king. The sun and moon will recover their brilliance, and throughout the four seas there will be songs and rejoice, and all the people will be blessed by his good fortune. So this is actually a very positive, very an optimistic outlook. But I won't explain this line either because things haven't happened yet. And if you understand, you've understood. If you don't understand, I can help you. But anyway, time is up too. I don't have anything fantastic to say. All I can say is I hope that you will quickly wake up from your dream of pursuing fame and money.